Every family has some kind of invisible balance sheet, a quiet record of give and takes. For most families, this balance sheet lives only in memories and emotions. But for the Brown family, stars of the TLC reality show Sister Wives, their balance sheet was put on public display for more than a decade. Or so they imagined. Their doctrine was as simple as that: one economy, one family. All earnings went into the pot, and all requirements would be fulfilled from it. It was the doctrine of their plural marriage, at least, that was the promise. And if you examine it closely, the truth is a far different tale. A tale in which some bore the burden, and one enjoyed the benefit. And that brings us to the question the audience has been asking themselves for years: did the numbers ever actually add up? Today, we're doing more than guessing. We're sorting through receipts, connecting the dots, and uncovering a 10-year financial meltdown that occurred before our very eyes. Welcome to Robyn vs. The Receipts, an investigation you won't want to miss. If you've ever sat through an episode, stuck your finger in the screen, and went, "Wait a second, that don't add up," then welcome home. This is the channel where we drill deeper than the show itself ever takes the time to. And today, we're peeling back the curtain on the Brown family bank account in our deepest breakdown to date. The proof is overwhelming, and every single detail counts. Before we begin, ensure that you click on the like button so that YouTube is aware that you are here, and subscribe with notifications enabled. You don't want to miss a shred of this case, I assure you. Because once we begin tracing the money, there is no turning back. So how do we account for the betrayal? We begin at the beginning. Lehi, Utah. 2010. The world meets the Browns, Cody, who terms himself the patriarch, and his 3 wives, technically the first wife, Mary, the stable career woman, Janelle, and the faithful homemaker, Christine. They all came together to raise 12 children in one crazy, custom-built home. Janelle once explained, "I've always been the one with the stable job, the benefits, the 401k. My paycheck supported the whole family." That wasn't just a casual comment, it was the backbone of the family's survival. Her government job provided security, health coverage, and retirement savings. For a family of this size, she was the rock. But Janelle wasn't the sole pillar. Christina's labor may not have been accompanied by a paycheck, but her labor was no less valuable. She managed the house, raised the children, and kept the family engine functioning. Without her, Janelle could not have worked full-time, and Cody could not have continued whatever it is that Cody continues. Her non-monetary contribution was priceless: cooking, cleaning, teaching, and mothering 12 children. That is not one job, that is 3. Mary did her part as well. She held a sequence of part-time work and placed her income in the communal pool. During the early years, the system actually worked. Janelle was the money leg, Christine the household leg, and Mary the balance leg. Tippy as it was, the stool continued to move. Everyone put in their best effort, and everyone's needs were met. And then the change happened. Not due to job loss or financial struggle, but because of an incoming arrival. A transformation that disturbed the equilibrium and rewrote the guidelines of receiving and offering. Meet Robyn Sullivan, a 3-child divorcee who did not enter the home with love only, but also a huge pile of debt. The show glossed over her introduction as a romance, a fresh start for the Browns. Financially, however, it was an acquisition. Robyn had $20,000 to $30,000 of credit and catalog debt that came with her tabbed estimate. For a family already stretched to the breaking point, this wasn't just unsettling, it was catastrophic. And that's where it gets good. From an early season production source, what audiences saw on screen regarding Robyn's debt was actually diluted. Off-screen, Janelle and Christine allegedly dug in with adamant pushback to taking on that debt. But Cody, they say, waved their pushback off and turned their pushback into a faith issue. That is, not wanting to do something he wanted meant being unfaithful to the principle. Keep that in mind. The initial monetary transaction with Robyn wasn't about dollar signs, it was about control. Cody established the pattern: Robyn's wants came before the well-being of the family. And if you need proof, look at one of the most infamous moments of Season 1, the Victoria's Secret shopping spree. On TV, it was cringeworthy and awkward. Behind the receipts, though, it was damning. Coyote wasn't tapping his own funds, he was dipping into the family fund. The same one whose coffers Janelle's income supplemented. The same one utilized to support 15 and a roof over their heads. That was not only cringe television. That was a message to the first wives: your sacrifice pays for my romance. Christine was angry, our source reveals. She was pinching pennies in order to put food on the table for the family, while Coyote was using the money they saved together to indulge his new fiancée, bills paid too. The family fund had changed. Survival and equality no longer defined it. It was now Coyote's own slush fund, and Robyn was the recipient. The next big upheaval? The abrupt transition from Lehigh to Las Vegas. Technically, it was all about avoiding legal issues in Utah. But everybody now suspects that something else was fermenting behind the scenes, reorganizing the family finances so that it would favor Coyote and Robyn down the line at the other's expense. In Lehigh, everything was in one place, out, shared, unhideable. It was different in Vegas. In Lehigh, it was shared. You couldn't sneak a bill at the grocery store when everyone was pulling food out of the same refrigerator. But once the Browns relocated to Las Vegas, everything was different. No longer under the same roof, but under 4 different rooftops. Coyote painted this as giving each of his wives freedom. In truth, it gave him so much more: secrets. Now he could pay money wherever he wanted to, disproportionately from the family's most profitable cash flow, the TLC checks, into 4 different houses without anybody really knowing where all of it went. This was not freedom. This was the slow erosion of the family pot. Now it was almost like the Coyote and Robyn Benefits Fund. The proof? It begins with the Vegas homes themselves. The 4 homes were a money pit in the making. Not only did it show cracks in their collective financials but, more significantly, showed something much more glaring: the disproportionate manner resources were being doled out. Robyn, the 4th wife, the one with the greatest degree of debt and lowest earnings history, somehow managed to have a house comparable to the others. The series skirted it with general talk of family finances. But we're not skirting it. We're getting honest. And what we learn leads us to a plan we refer to as the TLC income wash. Erase the hypothesis: by that time, the show's paycheck was the Browns' biggest asset. Rather than divide that money down the middle, Coyote allegedly put most of it into paying off a huge chunk of Robyn's accumulated debt, repairing her credit, and giving her a big down payment. All neatly packaged as making her whole so the family could secure the mortgages. But what it really meant was taking the lion's share of fresh money and granting it to the wife who contributed least, and having the rest, who'd contributed decades of providing, act as collateral for Robyn's financial redo. And once the houses were out of the way, the second installment of performance in the financial shell game started. Say hello to my sister wife's closet. On television, this was presented as a coming-together venture, a means of getting the wives together to pool their labor and earn some extra money. In life, it was more like a cash pit. We spoke to an ex-small business analyst who read over the business plan as given. His verdict was blunt: there was no viable plan. Prices were unrealistic, the inventory was screwed up, and marketing was constructed around the embers of TV fame. In effect, it did not resemble a business in the first place. It resembled a vanity project, or even worse still, a convenience tax haven. And whose ego did it serve? That one seems easy. Robyn was the business face, the one with supposed design talent. The one who had been positioned as most committed. The other wives were occasionally seemingly apathetic, even recalcitrant. Christine openly admitted, "I'm not a business person. This is stressful. I don't think this is what I should be doing." And then our second bombshell insider scoop. For years, it has been reported that the 4 wives were business partners, but a source who is familiar with the Browns' business documents tells us that Coyote and Robyn owned the interest, and signed on the business bank accounts. If that's the case, everything is different. Because that setup would have enabled them to do a few things: pay Robyn a salary independent of profit, charge personal expenses like phones or laptops, even deduct aspects of her home as a business office. Translation: a legal siphon. Money flowed into the business, paid in most cases by the family or by TLC checks, and then quietly siphoned into Robyn's home. So where did all that cash go? To merchandise that didn't sell. To a swanky website that wasn't updated regularly. And, supposedly, into the bank accounts of the two individuals at the very top. My sister-wife's closet was not a family enterprise, it was a black hole. And at the very center of that black hole? Robyn's garage. Exhibit A. But here is the incendiary question: if the family pot was being sucked dry, how were the other wives managing to keep their homes going? This leads us to the most incriminating on-air evidence of the Las Vegas period. It's time to open the courtroom. And in this instance, we're the prosecution. The staging: Coyote desires to bring the family up from its origins once more, but this time to Flagstaff. He refuses to sell the Vegas properties if it is not going to happen. To demonstrate his argument, he has all of the wives show their money on television, as if they were putting them to trial. He had hoped that this would be used to demonstrate that they were still an economic unit. What was revealed instead was his whole charade. Exhibit A, Janelle's budget board. It's all here, it's neat, it's precise. It's her income, her mortgage payment, her utilities, her bills. And what it establishes beyond any doubt is this: Janelle was completely on her own. She wasn't tapping into the family purse. And in fact, it's possible she was still pitching in. Under cross-examination, she even stated it baldly: I pay my own bills. I've always paid my own bills. That one line quietly confirmed everything. The so-called one-family system was a myth. Janelle was functioning financially as a single mom. Exhibit B, Mary's board. Same story. With income from Lularo, she too was covering her own expenses. Mortgage? Paid. Bills? Covered. She wasn't a drain; if anything, she was a net contributor. And then, there's Robyn. Intriguingly, we are never shown a clear photograph of her budget. We see it, hear her discuss it, but the cameras never remain steady long enough for the viewer to examine the figures in detail. Why? Why the immediate withholding of information, when all the other wives' figures were presented for the whole world to view? The reason, the prosecution claims, is straightforward. Showing Robyn's finances would have exposed the truth, a truth Coyote couldn't afford for viewers, or perhaps even the other wives, to see. If Robyn's board had been shown in full, it would have destroyed the narrative. We're talking about massive expenses, a sprawling 5-bedroom home, 5 children, and her personal spending, with little to no reliable income from her struggling jewelry venture to balance it. That board would not have been black figures in ink. It would have been red-lettered. And what would fill that gap? Only one thing: a huge, off-the-books infusion of money from the so-called family fund. Money that wasn't Robyn's, but the TLC checks and the other wives' hard-earned money. Coyote's little courtroom ploy was meant to establish that they were all one big happy family fighting together. What they actually did was just the opposite. It demonstrated reality. At least 2, if not 3, wives were all financially established on their own, as a fourth was being funded by the other 3 of them. Those whiteboards were not a plea for assistance. They were a careless admission. They were the bills. The Las Vegas era was not chaos. It was a masterclass in manipulation, encased in family language, in religious lore, and hawked on the television screen. But as great as it was, Vegas itself was just practice. The actual heist, the finale, would take place not under the glow of neon lights, but under the vast expanse of the Arizona sky. And evidence? It's buried in Coyote Pass Earth. Let's take the trail. The Browns had divided into 4 different households in Vegas. That was simpler to manage money around without people noticing, but still inconvenient. Coyote had 4 mortgages to manage, 4 bills, 4 illusions of autonomy. That was not efficient enough. Enter Flagstaff, Arizona. Technically, the relocation was about inspiration, a call, a hunch about the Vegas market, the temptation of a breath of fresher mountain air. But come on, they don't add up to the motivation for a family of 20-some-odd individuals to relocate for a multi-million-dollar move. They weren't reasons. They were excuses. The case for the prosecution can be put this way: the Flagstaff relocation was a manufactured crisis. A cooked-up sense of urgency to create an excuse to sell all 4 Vegas properties, trading hard, tangible pieces of real estate for a huge pile of liquid cash. And money, being different from houses, can be sent, concealed, and diverted. And how do you get the wives to forego their security? With the oldest thing in the book, well, all live together again. One big house. One family. One dream. It was the Lehigh story repackaged for a new generation. But this time around, the dream wasn't a vision, it was a trap. A Trojan horse to get the wives' agreement to lose their independence and hand over the purse strings to Cody again. And some of them bit. The cracks had started just about the minute they had moved into Flagstaff. Janelle, the longest-serving provider in decades, had to make do with a tiny rental. Christine, who had cared for most of the family kids, had another tiny house. Even Mary, with her LuLaRoe record-breaking earnings, had to make do with an ordinary rental. And then Robyn. Robyn and Cody into a ginormous luxury mansion with nearly $1 million price tag. 5 bedrooms. Land in acres. Several locations where they lived. A house that they would ultimately purchase for a little less than $900,000. The reasoning? They needed space needed for their children, and it was the only rental available that permitted pets. But for real, in a town the size of Flagstaff, that doesn't cut it. This was not need. This was desire. A conscious choice to place the family's collective wealth into one home, their own. And it's here that yet another insider account gives the fire even more gasoline. A knowledgeable source of Flagstaff's real estate market states that Cody and Robyn were house hunting in high-end homes for months before even the relocation was set. The rental story was just a cover, this source asserts. They were going to purchase that home regardless. But they needed proceeds from sales of the other wives' houses to do so. Consider that. The whole move, the pressure, the drama, the panic, was maybe all a ruse for one reason: getting Cody and Robyn's dream home. Not with the family, but because of the family. The others were not movers in the move. They were the money crew. But the mansion was only half the strategy. The grand prize was property. Land is permanent. Land is power. And on an empty Arizona desert mile called Coyote Pass, Cody and Robyn set the final component of their strategy into motion. The land was $820,000, cash siphoned straight out of the Vegas house sales. Technically speaking, it was square, all hands contributing to help pay for the family's forever home. The story was straightforward: one large house, one large family, one dream. But dreams don't pay. Promises are not deeds. And the deeds to Coyote Pass? Those are the real receipts. They present a whole different image. For years, people wondered how the land at Coyote Pass got parceled out. But speculation ended when the show itself displayed the graphics on screen, and public property records confirmed the fact. And when you get to see the split, the scam's as plain as the nose on your face. Let's cross over to the evidence board. Parcel 1, about 2 acres, fully deeded to Christine Brown. That is interesting. It put complete control in her hands. She could, and did, sell it. Parcel 2, about 4.5 acres, fully deeded to Janelle Brown. Again, sole control in her name alone. Parcel 3, another 4.5 acres, but this one jointly owned by Cody Brown and Mary Brown. Which means Mary had no say over anything Cody did. She was bound to him. Parcel 4, the gem of the collection. More than 5 acres, with the best views and the pond, later named the cesspool. And who co-owned this one? Cody Brown and Robyn Brown, together. Do you notice the trend? Those two most independently wealthy wives, the ones who were most likely to defy Cody's control, were given their packages handed over to them. Concessions. And yet, Mary was contractually obligated to Cody, and Robyn wasn't just obligated, she was given co-ownership of the most lucrative part of the entire property. And it does not stop there. On that one as well, there was a smaller fifth parcel thrown in. And who rode on that one? Guess who? Cody and Robyn, naturally. Do the math, and they were not just co-owners of the crown jewel property, they owned 2 of the 5 parcels. We consulted with a real estate attorney to review this scheme. Their verdict was direct: this is not the way a family planning to split down the middle would ever organize their actions. This framework creates legal turmoil for everyone but the couple who possess the largest, most valuable piece of land. That is, Cody and Robyn created veto power. No construction, no sale, no envisioned future could proceed without their approval. That's no accident. That's not a title company error. That's planning. Cold, deliberate planning. A permanent controlling stake etched into the ground itself. And here's the devastating part: this land was purchased with money from the Vegas home sales. Money that came from everyone. Janelle's decades of wages. Christine's unpaid labor. Mary's LuLaRoe empire. And yes, the millions in TLC checks. All of it funneled into dirt that, when the music stopped, left Cody and Robyn holding the deed to the crown jewel. It's not an exaggeration to say that this was one of the boldest long-term financial scams ever to air on reality television. And it didn't come cheap. Because a scam so brazen had to have repercussions. The inequality, now literally carved into the Arizona landscape, became the final straw. The family's collapse wasn't just emotional. It was financial. Christine, Janelle, and Mary's departures were more than divorces. They were survival. Escapes from a system designed to strip them of everything. Take Christine. Her exit wasn't just about walking away from Cody. It was about extracting her finances from his grasp. Recall, her name was on her package. And more significantly, her Flagstaff home was in her name too. She bought it. She earned the equity. And yet Cody was holding to his claim it was included in the family pot. His definition of what was fair was Christine giving up more, so he and Robyn could have more. But Christine wasn't having it. She sold the home, cashed out, and then purchased her freedom in Utah. Leaving was more than a departure. It was an economic escape. And then there is Janelle. Her tale is the most heartbreaking of them all. The woman who held the family together for decades found herself in an RV, technically homeless. Why? Because her Vegas home equity, savings, liquid funds, had all been invested in Coyote Pass. And if what Cody alleged is accurate, it went even deeper. On TV, Cody said he and Janelle had paid off all the Coyote Pass property. If it's true, it's dynamite. Because that would mean Janelle's money hadn't just purchased her own parcel, it paid for them all. Including the behemoth Cody and Robyn's share. This leads us to what we're calling the Janelle bailout. The theory is simple: when finances grew desperate in Flagstaff, with Robyn's $1 million mortgage, 3 other rentals, and no development happening on the land, Cody turned to the one person with money sense. He convinced Janelle to liquidate her assets for the good of the family. But in real life, Janelle's devotion was exploited. She was the family pot. She got them all the land and inherited an RV, and Cody and Robyn get to have a mansion that's been paid for. It's betrayal of such magnitude that it's almost too much to bear. And lastly, there's Mary. The first wife. For years, she was financially independent, largely thanks to her successful bed and breakfast in Utah, a business she started despite being denied help from the family. Mary's story is perhaps the most bittersweet of all. For years, she was sidelined, emotionally and financially. Her earnings, from both her LuLaRoe business and her inn, were welcomed into the family pot. But when she asked for support, her requests were denied. She had invested in him in merchandise, and he invested very little in her. And now? She is contractually tied to Cody via a deed to land on a house she'll never own. Her victory is that she is independent. She owns her own businesses, owns her own properties, owns her own financial independence. She doesn't require Cody. She doesn't require Robyn. She never did, actually. But her tragedy is real. A good chunk of her hard-won wealth are trapped forever in Cody and Robyn's masterfully executed land scam. And thus we come to the final chapter. Having followed the money for more than 10 years, from Lehi's communal family pot to Las Vegas' shell game of shards, and finally to Flagstaff's brutal consolidation, judgment time has come. The defense, typically spoken by Robyn, is based on a chorus of self-sacrifice. She is the wife who came with nothing, struggled, bled emotionally even when her business endeavors, such as my sister-wife's closet, fell through. But here's reality: emotions don't pay mortgages. Emotions don't appear on property deeds. And sacrifice doesn't cancel debt. The invoices, however, don't lie: a tale of debt accumulated by others, of special favors, of a vanity endeavor fueled by family funds, and of land specifically attracted to form an asymmetrical border. So what's the verdict? Verdict A: Robyn was appallingly overcredited. She borrowed far more than she ever actually contributed. Verdict B: Robyn paid for her lifestyle in secret and was self-made wealthy the entire time. The proof? Basically none. Verdict C: the cash was merely a wild scramble with no aim to the mismatch. But the trends? Too obvious. The deeds? Too artificial. The result? Too lopsided. There's only one verdict that holds water. Verdict A: Robyn was overcredited. The family jar was her cushion, her springboard, and eventually, her fortune. The money trail began with something as innocuous as a Victoria's Secret shopping bag, and ended with Cody and Robyn in the ownership of the deed to the highest-priced real estate in Flagstaff. But here's the catch: this narrative isn't simply one of betrayal and loss. It's one of tenacity and triumph. Because the ultimate evidence of imbalance wasn't on any whiteboard or deed, it was on the decisions of Christine, Janelle, and Mary. They didn't merely depart Cody. They departed the system. They exited a device built to suck them dry. And beyond it, they've flourished. Christine purchased her own house. Janelle carved her own life out of the family money. Mary constructed businesses in her own way. Their independence is the ultimate check, verification they never were the dependents. They were the engines. And now, for the first time, that engine is driving their lives, their way. And so the books are closed. Cody and Robyn are lounging in their palace, on large grounds, with their pickup and their nanny. The family pot, one that represented unity, has dwindled to two. Two adults, clinging to everything that had been shared. But there is one ghost question. If independent forensic accountants were granted subpoena authority, if all from TLC contracts to bank accounts, loan files, were made public, what would the real ledger be? Who'd be standing in the black? Who'd be digging in the red? And above all, who'd be owing whom everything?